did a football. I'm going to give it to them. I did the whole story about the Clash and London Calling, and they played football. They went to this place in Pimlico, and then they started. Johnny Green brought football to the practice, and then they went out, and all the kids in the neighbourhood played, and it became their big thing, playing football. So I did a 1970s classic black and white football, and I ripped it all to pieces and stuck it back together with safety pins and put Anarchy in the UK on it. I was going to give that.
Yeah, I've seen that on your Instagram.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One thing I was wanting to ask you, right, is see before a job, you said something out there, you were going to do a job, and you were like, I don't know what to do. So there's a wee bit of self-doubt.
Yes.
When you do the job.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Where do you go in your head?
That's a scary fucking thing, that is.
To get the creativity.
It scares the shit out of you. What I do is I love movies, I love films, but I love a lot of things, books, just people. I see they look great. But the self-doubt thing, I did the Alanis Morissette video for You Ought to Know, which was a big video, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And what I did was I just wanted to go to Death Valley. I knew Death Valley was cool, but everyone came, what's the idea? And I said, we'll go to Death Valley and I'll shoot a video. But when I got there, I didn't know what was going on. I was shitting myself because all the crew were going to me, what we're going to do? What's the first shot? And I said, I didn't know. And then just out the corner of my eye, I saw a girl that was doing stills photography. She had a little case on her. And I thought, that's it. It's Alanis walking across with her case and she gets changed along the way. And that's how the idea came out. It came out of nowhere. But right before that, I was literally panicking that I wasn't going to get it. Because all these people doing here.
But you've kind of got to trust yourself and trust the process.
I have. There's been a few things. This is an interesting thing, I think, is like, and I put this question to someone in an interview with, it's like, when you do something you think is great and you're really good, but no one else does. Like it's happened to me. Who's right, me or the person who doesn't like it? And I've done some shit stuff as well. You know, I go, oh my God, you always forget about the shit stuff you do. Oh shit, did I do that? Oh dear. And you wonder where your head was at the time. But, you know, what and it's like goes with this stuff as well. It's like, the way I do, especially with videos, I'm like, okay, listen to the music. How does the music make me feel, first of all? I don't read the lyrics. I'm like, how does the music make me feel? Okay, it makes me feel this way. It makes me feel up, or it makes me feel down, or it makes me feel like angry, or it makes me feel horny, or whatever the fuck it is. And then I read the lyrics, and then I try and fit the lyrics into what I've been feeling. And you usually get something that comes out of that. That's with videos. With art, and especially these things, you go, oh, I love that song. Like, okay, Starfucker, the Rolling Stones. I love that. The chorus is Starfucker, 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 Star. But the song wasn't called Starfucker because they banned it. It was called Star, Star. And I thought, how great to do Starfucker, 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 Star, just over and over. And then my favourite is Ain't There One Damn Song That Can Make Me Break Down and Cry. I think that says everything. That's the David Bowie thing. So listening to music is my greatest inspiration, even if it's not a music video, even if it's art. You listen to a song, and I like all kinds of music. You know, I like music. I like classical music. I like all kinds of music. I love one of my favourite soundtracks is the Clockwork Orange soundtrack. So I think I take music. I did a T-shirt for a football brand called Bumpy Pitch, and they're these two ex-American, well not ex-American, they're American, but they play for the American USA youth side, and they've put together this very, very kind of expensive football, and they've done that. They found the original American League in 1910 or something. They put all the teams on T-shirts, and they came to me and they said, we want to do we would like you to do a T-shirt of us for something that's to do with music and football. So I took an image of the Shed in 1971 with a punk. Yeah, I put him in the foreground, and that's what the image is. And the T-shirt, it's sold out. This T-shirt sold out, and that was the only thing I've really done that's actually used football culturally. Because I was talking to Graham about this, about doing art-related. Football-related art. It's tough to do because you can't do like a Chelsea, you know, and you can't do Glasgow Rangers or Celtic. You've got to be very careful about how you do it. You could potentially do Pele because he's an icon that's kind of loved. I know there was a Maradona one with the hand of God. There are certain images, But I did I took the 1970s football and I did the Anarchy in the UK football, which was great. It was the hang tag for that shot I did. Look up Bumpy Pitch when you get a shot.
But you're saying though, you've done that thing we know where you're all sitting
Yeah.
watching this out. So he's Man City, you're Chelsea.
And they go,
down and appreciating the same.
Yeah, we definitely did. And the thing about it was, because Chelsea and Man City get compared to each other as the teams that got lots of money injected into them. But what happened was, we forgot the Man City-Chelsea thing. We got into like Rodney Marsh, who played for Man City. We got Peter Osgood. We got Charlie Cook. We got into the icons of the household names. Billy Bremner, whether you liked him, I hated him when I was a Chelsea supporter. He's from Leeds, And we got into that. And I found I relate to Oasis so much more on football even than on music. Liam is a bit more of a poser with football, but Noel is a real football fan and he really knows his shit. So I enjoyed doing that because, it was the classic case of when I was working with them and the season was on. If you lost, you got the piss taken out of you straight away, and vice versa.
But that's an age, that's like you'll be out with your friends.
Yeah, no, you do, yeah. On school, when I was at school, if you went to school, if you lost to the rival, Tottenham or whatever, and you went to school, you knew you were going to get the fucking piss. But if you won, you couldn't wait to get to school. And that's what Graham was telling me. He was like, he's one of his mates is a Celtic fan, these Rangers, and there's like, like the weekend they got hammered, and his mates texting him, got you. And he's ignoring it, as much as he can. But I have a friend who's a Spurs fan, and what I love about football is, and it's been unfashionable to be a football fan recently, as in recent years, because it's got attributed to, now it's not even a working man's game anymore. It's like wealthy people. But when I used to go in the 70s, it was a working class game. I mean, Chelsea's Stamford Bridge was a shithole, but there's something I loved about it. It was like, and I used to go to the away games and get on the trains, and we'd go to Chelsea. There was something really wonderful about that. But it's gone away from that. And we had the same conversation. It's like, back in 1970, the only foreign players for Chelsea were from Scotland. And I think the sadness about because Scotland produced some great footballers, is that foreign influx into the Premier League has pushed the Scottish players away. And that's what's affected the national team. I mean, me and Greg were talking about Scotland in the World Cup, and now they qualified for 5 World Cups in a row. And then you think of those players, there was Graham Souness and Gordon McQueen, and it was like household names, every one of them, but you don't have so many Scottish household names anymore. It's a shame.
It's the same maybe with the bands,
yeah.
Scottish bands.
I know.
No, there was loads of the bands as well, all coming through the kind of 80s and 90s.
Right.
It's kind of dripped away.
Like Las Vegas, they were a great band. I like Las Vegas. They're still kicking about. I met those guys. They didn't take too much of me wearing a kilt though. I wore a kilt, yeah. I got a grey kilt done, and they weren't too bad. But all my other Scottish friends were like, hey, it's great.
James looks like, the singer looks like
Joe Strummer. He's a spitting image of him. And I love Joe, and he's not quite as affable as Joe. He's a little bit more kind of sullen. But
the Scottish Joe Strummer.
Yeah, he could play him in a movie. I love Joe.
James used to be a football player.
Oh, now he told me, yeah.
He used to be a football player.
Who did he play for?
He played for Gretna and maybe Falkirk or something like that. So it was lower league teams he played for.
Well, there is that great affinity between football and music, and it's like even like what's his name from The Cure, like, and then you've got like the Clash. I think the Clash, it was like Mick and Joe supported Chelsea, although there was a rumour that Joe supported Arsenal, but I'll never want to believe that. And Steve and Paul from the Pistols, I used to go to football with Paul to see Chelsea play, and there's that connection in there that's something special, really.
It's that kind of working class.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. Mick Jones's quote was, if you want to do anything in England, you've either got to be a footballer or a musician. That's the only way you're going to get on. So I think that was right. If you want to get outside of, I mean, Mick was great, and this story that I wrote about them playing football was they had to move away from North London where all their hangers-on would come, and they moved to Pimlico, which is like down by the river. And it was 1979. It was when Thatcher just got in. It was like the Thames was the water levels were getting higher. Everything that's in that song is behind me. It comes from that period in Pimlico, and then it's when they played football and they went down. And it was like Joe became almost authoritarian about it. play football, and all the local kids got to hear about it, and they came down, took the piss out of them. But then the Clash would get the executives from CBS Records to play, so they could hack them over. And they played in their Doc Martens and their zipped up trousers. I love that kind of stuff.
Football's a leveler.
Yes, it is.
It's a leveler for everybody.
And you know what the funny thing about it is? I think as we get older, because I never went fighting people, but I did go away to Chelsea, and I did like like I said, the sort of like went to a Leicester Chelsea game in the 70s, and the police were separating the Chelsea fans, so they knew what they were like, so it got it down to like 10 Chelsea supporters, but these 10 I was with were the fucking absolute leaders of the show. This guy called Natalie and a guy called Eccles, and they were the hardcore, and they were like, we were about to go to Leicester End, and they said, right, we're getting to Leicester End with Chelsea. And I'm like, fuck, who am I more scared of, them or the Leicester fans? So we get in the Leicester End and we go Chelsea, timidly, Chelsea. And all these, luckily they were in the paddock next to us, and all these bottles and cans rained on top of us. So the police started to move in, and Natalie goes, I don't want any bottling here. If they ask you where you're from, you tell them from your Leicester, right? So this policeman came up to me and goes, where are you from, son? I said, Leicester! In the most quiet I could do it. And he got and he took us out. So he wasn't bottling, and he took us out, and the Chelsea fans down the other one were like, Chelsea aggro, and we were walking around going, yeah. I'll never forget it. It was the most memorable feeling of like, you were down that Leicester, and although they didn't realise how scared I was at the time, but when I was out in this field, the other thing was walking on the special. I think Chelsea were playing Coventry, and we were on the special, and I walked in this carriage, and all the Chelsea team were there, and I was like, you like walking into a chariot of gods. And Eddie McCready said to me, what's up, son? The cat's got your tongue. And Eddie McCready's got a whiskey and a cigarette in his mouth. And that was another great story. I love those. Interesting, because actually, when I think about it, Iggy Pop was the first one I did like that, for blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then I did In Excess, and then I did Suck It, and then I did Wendy and Lisa. So I went through a whole thing of the white background. That's a good question. I think mainly it came from fashion, and a lot of fashion at the time was against white backgrounds, like the Vogue stuff, and Stephen Meisel did it for Italian Vogue. So I think it came from them. But it's an interesting question. I never thought, because Malcolm McLaren was like unlike any other artist, because he wasn't. I mean, he was a thing unto himself. I thought he was a genius. He was a genius of popular culture. Whatever he did, people were either talking about it, dancing to it, wearing it, or whatever. And he was a quirky character and very, very funny. And he had an irreverence. He didn't care about being on the cover. And I think what you were saying about, well, he came from management, but he never really was a manager. And I worked with him on Bow Wow Wow, and he really wanted to move away from being in management because he wasn't that sort of type of person. And to being on the Duck Rock, where he didn't even want to sing on the record or to perform on them, but the record company held him to a contract and said he had to. I went from that cover, Duck Rock, which is close to, where it was, I thought it was organic and it evolved itself, and I wanted it to be like it came from the streets of New York, and that you took a pen and wrote on it, and you had a flyer for your band and you stuck it on. I wanted it to be like that, and I think that's a good question in terms of the next thing I wanted it to be, because I also did Bob Dylan Biograph, and that was against white, and that was an old publicity picture I found of him, and I used that not against white because I used a sort of a background. And I thought, the great thing about that is it really stands out as to what it is. The Duck Rock thing didn't matter because Malcolm wasn't the artist. So it didn't matter whether you saw him on the cover or not. But Bob Dylan, it did matter. And In Excess, it did matter. And Iggy Pop, it did matter. But I have a great story about Iggy Pop. He was like, I was working with him and we wanted, my idea for him was, let's make him like a Calvin Klein. Let's make him, because he was all healthy, buffed up, was off the heroin. He looked great, had a suntan. So I said, let's make him like a Calvin Klein model. That's why we did the black t-shirt and the jeans, and he looked like that. And so that was a conscious thing to do that. But I remember sitting in his place with him. He lived in a little place down in near West Broadway. And I'd ask him a question. And well, first of all, I came in and he had a pinafore on because he was doing the washing up. And then I asked him a question. He'd get up, plug in the vacuum, he'd like vacuum up the whole floor. And he'd go, interesting. And he'd answer the question. And then I'd be like, same thing. That was his way of thinking. He vacuumed the house. And I thought that was a brilliant thing. It shows that you don't imagine Iggy Pop in a pinafore vacuuming his house up, do you, really? It doesn't come across that. So yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that definitely, I I wanted to feature, I wanted people to know what they were getting with an artist. With Malcolm, it didn't matter if you knew what you were getting, but with an artist like the Psychedelic Furs and like Iggy, you wanted to see them what they were like now. Like you want to see Iggy, he was healthy, you want to see him like that. You want to see Michael Hutchins, but I had to be careful and only have half of Michael Hutchins because of the rest of the band. So I knew the politics involved in it, having been around bands as well.
The cover of X is different because obviously there's a blue background, it's obviously sort of like marble blue behind it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you've cut them out, it's like scraps, like old kids' scraps with a white background with it. So there's almost like a sort of a sense of movement.
Yeah.
When you see that sleeve, it's completely different from Kick.
I know,
At
yeah.
the same time, it's
I actually prefer the X cover.
I prefer the X
Yeah,
cover
because it was more a comic. You know, it came from Michael had a ring on, and it was this green. It was this green ring. Yeah, it was a green ring, and it reminded me of a superhero. So I wanted to shoot like a comic book. So it was like a comic book, superheroes, and Michael's got his fist up in the thing, and I really like that. That came across well, and the photographer I worked with, Michael Hausband, who's a New York photographer, we did a lot of GQ stuff. I brought him down to Australia with me. And we got into the same thing I was talking earlier about being with the band and getting into the vibe and being out with them. And I was there when they shot the video for not Need You Tonight, but they used Need You Tonight as an influence, but for Mediate. And I got to know the band, and I got Michael sort of into all of that thing, because it's like you go out for a drink with you guys afterwards, and we become, and all the stuff between you and me goes away. And you become like mates, kind of mates. You either like someone or you don't like them, and you hang out with them. And that's why I like Kirsten and Graham. It's like, besides the thing we're doing together, I've had a laugh with them. And that's what's important, I think, when you work with a band, is to relate to them. I've never gone in ever thinking I'm better than the band, or I'm like more important than the band, or like I know more than they did. I've always been, it sounds pretentious when I say I've been humble, but I've listen to what every band member has to say, and I've tried to, but I'm manipulative too. I mean, I'm manipulative because I kind of get what I want by listening to what they say. Yeah, I'm kind of getting, hey, you guys, hey, that's a great t-shirt, I love that t-shirt, and then I'll be going, yeah, well, why don't we do it? And you go, yeah, it's a great t-shirt, it's a great t-shirt.
See, quite a lot of people that read PANINARO will probably be of a certain age. Delight, when you did World Clique.
Oh, good one, yeah.
So that's quite the World Clique sort of sleeve and whole sort of package reminds me of ABC when it did How to Be a Zillionaire.
Oh yeah.
Very much like a sort of cartoon thing. Was that what?
Well, no, and it's interesting because you've got a thread here, because I did that right after X. So I took like I did with Iggy Pop and In Excess and Psychedelic Furs. I then took, because I said earlier on that if Hope is trying to get a band and taking a picture of a band, because all together. Because one of them's going to have their eyes half closed or whatever. It better take. So I took the Delight, took them individually, but like I did with X, I put them on that star background. Yeah. You know. So it's interesting that you bring that up, because I never thought about it until you mentioned this.
I thought it was quite an interesting sort of concept. When ABC done it, they looked completely weird in 1984. The way they dressed, they just did not sort of look like, you know, pop stars.
Right.
They completely opposite, looked mid-70s. And then when Delight came back, I thought, this reminds me of ABC, but it was in such a good way, because it was such a great track.
Yeah, it was one of the greatest dance tracks of all time.
It's never off the radio.
No, it's fucking brilliant.
After work again, after banging out that one song.
Yeah.
So then in the 90s, the stuff you did in the 90s, it sort of drops off the album covers. Belinda Carlisle.
Yeah, I love Belinda.
Carlisle, that was very much, that had a very sort of 60s I Love Lucy type vibe.
Yeah, well, she's like
TV,
that.
Is she like that? Yeah.
I love Belinda. And the thing is with Belinda, without question, I've worked with Kylie, but I know Belinda's the most photogenic person I've ever worked with in my life. I mean, the camera loves that woman. And you look at her and you go, I mean, you guys work with camera. You sometimes have people you go, I'm sure you're not saying it about me, but God, fucking drop dead gorgeous, you know, or are you? And Belinda was like a little bit of the, that was a transition between Wendy and Lisa and Belinda, because in the Wendy and Lisa thing, I had the white side with the objects falling through the front, and then and so I do go through little phases. But Belinda was a wonderful person to work with.
It was a great sleeve. It conjured up the exact title of the album. I thought.
Yeah.
The way she looked.
Yeah.
And the sort of roses coming down,
Yeah,
flowers
no.
coming down, etc.
She looked great, and I did two videos from that album too.
I mean, the Wendy and Lisa, it's funny you bring up Wendy and Lisa, because the Wendy and Lisa sort of campaign wasn't particularly popular music-wise for them, but
Yeah.
it was a great album.
Yeah.
It's strange how these sort of things just don't take off.
No, and the funny thing about Wendy and Lisa, I love those girls because when I first came to, I'd gone to Australia because I did the Kit cover. And when I was down there, and I'd done one video, and that was for Iggy Pop. And when I went down there, I started to work with an artist called Jenny Morris, who was a backing singer for INXS, and I started to do videos for her. And then when I came to LA, they'd just left Prince. And so they were like massive because they were in Prince. And what was great about them, I met with them and they love me. You know, there are certain people that meet with you and they like you, don't care what your work's like. They just like you and they want to work. And that was what Wendy and Lisa were like, because I didn't have the track record as a music video director. I did as an album cover director. And they, despite, and I've got to say this because, you know, management, oh, I don't think you should work with Nick, he's not experienced. They said, no, that's who we're going to work with. And they were great for that. They gave me my first big break because I did the Honeymoon Express video. There's a lot of money and they look great in it, and they really gave me my first break in LA because they were a big artist because they were with Prince. But you're right, the album didn't really.
It just didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen.
It just been because it's the wrong label.
Maybe but their music is kind of interesting because it's got a jazzy. Because I think their dad was a jazz pianist, and it's got a kind of a slightly more. Yeah, it's not pop like it was with Prince, and I think the first single was kind of pop.
It's a great album, but it didn't really sort of come across as an American album. It seemed to be they were trying to conquer Britain rather than America.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's an interesting song. Lolly Lolly was a good track of that. I did that video for that too. And they were great because they gave me, I mean, I forgot to mention Wendy and Lisa because they gave me a lot of work and I love those girls and I got on great with them. I'm still really good friends with them. I'm really good friends with Susanna. And I saw them do The Revolution played not too long ago after Prince had died, and Wendy sang and she was brilliant. I mean, I don't know why they don't do more because she was brilliant doing the Prince stuff. But I was honoured, I mean, you can't get better than Prince and the two girls that really did it for Prince.
Unfortunately, I missed the beginning of the conversation because of a traffic jam. But when you started in the mid-70s, for instance, when you worked with Malcolm McLaren and so on, is that what led to the work with like Bananarama, etc.? Did you all know each other between? Yeah, well, I knew. Siobhan. I knew Siobhan, and I'm going to stay with her. Go down to London since she was at school. She was at Catholic school, and her boyfriend went to my art college, and her sister went out with my best friend, and I went out with her best friend. Right. And so I've known Siobhan since she was 16 years old. We're still really close, but she was also friends with Paul Cook, and Paul Cook got Bananarama going, and then the Fun Boy 3, and that's when they were really good. And then Stock Aitken and Waterman came in, they kind of killed it a little bit because Siobhan's not that person. She's more punky, and she did Shakespeare's Sister obviously as a result after that. No, it's a good question. But I talked earlier on about single covers and how singles were more important than album covers. And I did the Dexys Midnight Runners album cover. That was the first album cover I did. And I did the single covers. I worked with my friend at the time, Pete Barrett, and we did that together. And then I started to get Hazy Fantasy, Stiff Little Fingers, around the same time I was working for Malcolm, because I did Bow Wow Wow. Yeah. So I was getting notoriety besides Malcolm, but when I worked with Malcolm, I got it more, because then I worked with Culture Club and Bananarama. I believe you did the logo for Culture Club?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Well, I'm obsessed with pop logos, so I suppose that's enough for running out of time, but can you explain something about the Culture Club logo? Because the first time it was really used was on Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? The first two singles, they had the most awful logos, I don't know who designed them, but when you seen your logo, it just really stuck out. And I was one of these sort of kids that really bought a record because of the cover.
Oh, really?
So much about the content. Yeah. I was really bad for that. From the age of 8 years old, I was very aware of design.
Right, that's good though, that's good, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've always been in that way, and sometimes I feel a bit guilty about wasting money on stuff that I don't like to hear.
Right, but you like to look at.
But the Culture Club logo to me was a great logo, it was an iconic.
I met Brian Ferry recently, and Roxy Music album covers got me to want to do album covers. Right. Yeah, and I told him that, and he was great because he just wanted to talk about football. he supports Chelsea and Newcastle. I said, how can you support two teams? But because he lives in Chelsea. But the Culture Club logo, okay, there's two things that happened. Jamie Reed did the best logo ever with the Sex Pistols. Right. They're hands down, there's nothing as great as that logo. Yeah. And it came out of the ransom note thing. Right, okay. And so, I couldn't afford Letraset. Letraset was the thing where you could do expensive. Yeah, expensive. And so I took the Letraset book and I cut out. I did the Bow Wow Wow logo, which is the one that I did with the rewind and fast forward. Yeah. And the Culture Club was kind of an extension of that. So it was punky because it was a bit broken up. But I kind of made it so it was a little less random. So I had the big C and the big C, and then the letters in between. And I think it's what I think is funny, because I did quite a few things for the Culture Club, was in his book, Take It Like a Man. I mean, my sister called me and said, we read the Boy George book and we can't believe you did all those drugs. And I'm like, so I read it and I'm like, oh my God, it's like he doesn't mention all the work I did for him. He mentioned all the time I took drugs with him. When I was in... No, this was like, by the time, it might be about 86, because he moved to New York for a while and we were hanging out a lot together, yeah. But I love George. He's great. And yeah, that was, I did one Kid Miss Me Blind, I did the cover for.
Right.
Yeah.
Touch of the Poison Rings as well.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for reminding me. Okay, that's
I was actually obsessed with the drug scandal for George.
I
was 15 years old. And
did you read the book?
My pocket money on every newspaper that came out.
Really?
Every morning to see how George was doing. This was all pre-social media. That's what you had to do. Do you know what I mean?
Did you read the book?
Oh yeah.
So you would have read about me.
It's a really good book.
Well, he does a story in it that I think is kind of funny. He goes, he gave me what I thought was ecstasy, but it was a Quaalude. And it made me apparently do stuff I don't remember. And he said, if you knew my friend Nick, he is not the sort of person that jumps up on the table and starts to, but he did on this Quaalude. Really? So it was kind of fun. He did it in a fun way.
Are you still friends?
I don't see him as much. I saw him, funny enough, I saw him not too long ago. My neighbour across the street from where I live is Dave Smith, and he's a big star. He does Lionel Richie and who's a black keyboard player. Anyway, and one day there's a knock at my door, and I open the door and it's George standing there, because he knows Dave, and he came, and it's great. It was great to see him, but he went through that really bad heroin phase, and it was really difficult to talk to him. Really got. But yeah, I love George. I used to DJ with him. We used to DJ at a place called Planets.
Right, okay. How long ago was that?
Oh, 1982.
Right, just before you made it big then?
Yeah, 1981 even.
Right.
I mean, and what I love about that is, we get into this whole thing now, we're in this political thing about gender fluid and everything, and I go, great, and I'm up for anybody who wants to call themselves whatever they want to call me, I don't have a problem with it, but this naming of George and Marilyn and Philip Sullivan, they really broke down the barriers, because it was dangerous for them. To be like that. And George comes from a family of boxers. Irish boxers. I saw him, I was with him in a club called the Beetroot once, and I saw him flatten someone. But they really did pave the way for a generation that hasn't had to deal with that, the violence. And I love George for that. And I used to go out, they used to call me the King of the Queens, because I'd go out with them for dinner and everything like that. Marilyn and Marilyn and George had this weird relationship. But I like to think, I love those sneakers, by the way. They're fucking great. They're in the t-shirt.
Crocs sneakers?
Yeah. Are they Crocs?
They're just Nike.
Air
Force One that somebody painted for me.
Oh, they painted that on there?
They painted on for us. So
nice, got a great t-shirt and they're great. But yeah, so I love them, and I love what they represent. I mean, I used to go to gay bars with them. I went to gay bars with them in New York, and I'm not gay or bisexual or anything. But I love being with them. I had such a great time with them, going out. And I used to go to Heaven with them, and they were their humour was so fantastic. I love their humour was so brilliant. I always remember my grandmother, who gay to her was someone that was happy. And she once came to me, she goes, oh, I read in the paper, Boy George isn't gay. I'm like, yeah, right now, okay. You keep believing it, keep believing. But he was, and George loved to conquer straight men. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't try, Steve Strange was the other one.
and then you went out with John Moss, who was straight, you know, and they went out together. But what a fantastic character person, what he helped to represent in.
I think that whole period was completely. I'm obsessed by that whole period.
How old were you then?
Well, I was only 9.
Oh dear, well that's a shame.
Aware of all these sort of things.
It was the same with me over the
Some kids
60s.
might like football. I was more into package design and pop stars and things like that. Like ABBA the album when that came out.
How did that go down in Glasgow? Huh? Especially back then.
Well,
Nowhere. I mean, London.
It didn't particularly bother me.
No, that's good.
One of these people that let that sort of thing bother me.
But I mean, it was hard enough in London.
Yeah.
To be like, to have anything that was like slightly off the centre, but to be in Glasgow, I would imagine that you've got to be into football, haven't you, and fighting.
Well, no, I don't know. You have to have some really, really good sort of comebacks when it comes to.
Well, that's great, and that's what I loved about.
What works.
And I love.
A sense of humour that works as well.
I loved sense of humour does work, and that's why George was so. I mean, he could cut people down with his tongue, and I used to admire it the way he would do it. And him and Marilyn together, that relationship between them, and like Marilyn would come in and give him a big cake because he wanted George to get fat. And look, darling, I brought you a cake, and George would eat it, and Marilyn was doing it to be evil to him, so he'd get fat. So, and I just thought it was, and I love Marilyn too. And actually, Graham's got a Marilyn single, one of the pieces of art's got the Marilyn. I forgot I did Marilyn's single for whatever it was. Yeah, but Marilyn was a little bit more evil than George.
George, competition between
well, in New York it was really bad. But yeah, I love George. George was great, but he did a great thing. A quick story too, because they're looking like they need to go. For a long story short, I was getting married, but I got my visa turned down in England, and I bumped into George at the ICA, and I hadn't seen him for years, and I told him his story, and he used to have a column for the Daily Express or something. He used to write for them, and he said, I just saw my friend, I can't mention his name because he's like in the middle of doing this thing, we're trying to get his visa. He goes, but he should get this lawyer that I heard about in America. So some guy apparently in America, if it's over $500, it's a felony. If it's under $500, it's a misdemeanor. So he shoplifted this thing that was like $600. So he's up for a felony. But the thing had been marked down in the sale to $300. So the guy, his lawyer got him off on it. And he said, I need to get a lawyer like that. So that's good. Look, I think they're ready to go. Look, I told you I could talk forever.
That was fascinating stuff.
Oh, great.
Brilliant.
Great.